Joining us, Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy Executive Chairman. You never stop adding to the position of your company, and you have a lot of courage because there's been a lot of major swings in the past. And there were times when I was worried. Can you tell me, were you ever close to margin calls? Anything ever happening to MicroStrategy?
Well, when Silvergate Bank failed, we had to redeem that, but it turned out to be a benefit for us. We made a lot of money on that redemption. We repaid our Silvergate loan. But it's been a great journey. Since August 10th of 2020, MicroStrategy has bought about $8.3 billion worth of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's up 44% a year on average since then. The S&P is up 12%. And since we levered it, we're up 825%. The number one performing stock in the S&P is NVIDIA, up 821% as of Friday. So we beat every single company in the S&P index using a Bitcoin strategy.
Does MicroStrategy now do anything else?
We still run the software business, and it's generally a cash cow for us. But our primary business is a Bitcoin development company. So what we're doing is we're securitizing Bitcoin. We're selling convertible bonds for people that don't want the full volatility and all the risk of Bitcoin. Some people want 150% risk, right? So some people want highly levered equity, and they trade the options. And so we have a very big, deep, rich options market. We've got high performance equity, and then we've basically pioneered the Bitcoin-backed bond market by issuing all of these convertible bonds that are backed by 5x more Bitcoin collateral.
Has anything changed in terms of, you think, the investor class that's investing in your stock versus now investing, for example, in an ETF? Obviously, one is more levered than the other.
Yeah, if you're investing in the ETF, you're getting one-for-one performance, paying 25 basis point fee, no yield. When we issue a $1 billion convertible bond paying 1% interest, we're capturing a 50% premium or 50% type BTC yield on that up front, and then we capture another yield on the back end. So if what you wanted was a sort of a tax-deferred yield on your asset, or you wanted to tap into the convertible bond market, like if you wanted to borrow $1 billion for a percent, buy Bitcoin with it, hold it for 7 years, you can't do that as an individual, but MicroStrategy can do it.
What have you made? Right now, I think I just saw a headline that $1.2 billion in outflows took place out of the Bitcoin ETF. And I'm curious sort of what you think is going on with the impact of the ETF on the price of Bitcoin.
I think generally it's been a good thing, and it's created more demand. But you got to keep in mind that Bitcoin is smart, fast, strong money. So on a Saturday night, if you're worried about a missile strike, you can't teleport your $10 million apartment to Singapore, lever it up 10 to 1, and short $100 million worth of New York real estate. But you can short $100 million worth of Bitcoin by borrowing $10 million. So you have a lot of fast money traders, a lot of volatility, and that will cause and ripple into volatility in the ETFs.
Can you explain this?
That's okay.
Can you explain this? You know, one of the things you just talked about, if there was a missile strike or something, there was a sense that people talked about this as digital gold. And maybe you still think that's the case, but it often doesn't act like digital gold in the midst of a missile strike.
Yeah, it's the most liquid, fungible, free capital market in the world. Your New York apartment's not fungible. It's not liquid. I can't panic sell it. So when there's a short-term panic, Bitcoin is trading really, really hard.
Isn't it supposed to be the opposite?
Over the long term, it's up 44% a year, every year. And you either get 12% from the S&P with VIX vol, or you take 3x the vol to get 44%. So over the long term, if you're an investor, it's going to be great because it's strong capital. Over the near term, if you're a trader, you get lots of arbitrage opportunities.
Michael Saylor, the visionary executive chairman of MicroStrategy, has taken the crypto world by storm with his latest enigmatic message. With a tweet that's causing a stir across digital communities, he alludes to Bitcoin as part of a grand strategy, likening it to a masterful move in a chess game. Meanwhile, in the backdrop, the U.S. Department of Justice has been greenlit to sell an astonishing $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin from the Silk Road seizure. Will this result in a dramatic shift in the crypto landscape? Welcome back to Investocracy Crypto.
So I'm going to start right there. The torrid run we've seen in Bitcoin, is this all just anticipation about what a Trump administration is going to mean for it?
You know, the red wave is probably the biggest thing that's happened in the past 4 years for Bitcoin. It's incredibly auspicious for Bitcoin and for the entire crypto industry. But we're also getting a lot of very constructive support from Wall Street. BlackRock has been a very, very strong voice articulating the Bitcoin value proposition. And of course, MicroStrategy on October 30th announced that we were going to raise $42 billion to buy Bitcoin. And that's the same as saying we're going to buy every Bitcoin mined for the next 3 years at $85,000 or more Bitcoin. So there's a lot of bullish things going on in the market right now.
And I do want to get to that audacious $42 billion fundraising plan of yours. But first, there's a lot of regulation and regulatory aspects that are in focus with the Trump administration coming into play. SEC chairman, for example, a lot of expectations that Gary Gensler is going to step aside. And I realize Bitcoin itself is governed as a commodity, unlike other cryptocurrencies. But when you're talking about the ETFs and when you're talking about the cryptocurrency exchanges and when you're talking about companies like yours, MicroStrategy, which is publicly traded, it is SEC. So how important is that appointment going to be? And who would you like to see at the helm?
Well, I think whoever chairs the SEC has probably the most pivotal role in the entire digital assets industry. I think this is incredibly bullish for digital assets. It's very good for the crypto industry. We're going to see a lot more pro-Bitcoin policies. We're going to see a digital assets framework. We're going to see an end to the war on crypto. We're going to see a lot of pro-business policies. And I think that clearly the SEC will be a big part of it. So it's above my pay grade to have an opinion on who it's going to be. But I think it's pretty clear the House, the Senate, the White House, they're all very pro-crypto. So I expect that we'll have a very supportive head of the SEC.
Bitcoin is the right move. It's this kind of theatrical flair that has the community buzzing, arousing both admiration and staunch backing. Saylor's message is clear, eloquently framing Bitcoin not just as an asset, but as the cornerstone of a sound digital strategy for the future. On the other side of this digital theater, governmental machinations play out as the U.S. Department of Justice gears up to offload a hefty 69,370 Bitcoins, previously brought in from the illustrious corridors of the Silk Road.
Michael, well, as well as you've done buying Bitcoin, I'm not sure anything is really above your pay grade at this point, which leads you to the question, what do you think is the biggest threat to Bitcoin's price staying above 60K? What potentially causes another dive below 30K?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to 60K. It's not going to 30K. I think it's going to go up from here. I'm planning the 100K party. And I'm thinking it's probably going to be New Year's Eve at my house. So I would be surprised if we don't go through 100K in November or December.
So then what's the biggest threat to it going lower, even if it doesn't get that low?
I think the biggest uncertainty in the industry was November 5th. And would you have a blue wave? Would you have a red wave? Or would you have a split Congress? And would you have any dispute about the future of crypto assets and Bitcoin? I think that was settled by the people very decidedly on November 5th. And I don't really see any threats in the near-term horizon.
A strategic Bitcoin reserve, how likely is it that that is actually established? And why would that be a good thing when you're talking about a decentralized asset now being stockpiled by a centralized government?
Well, that's being sponsored by Senator Lummis from Wyoming, and she understands the value of the frontier. The United States was built by purchasing Manhattan, then we purchased the Louisiana Territory, then we purchased California and acquired Texas, and then we bought Alaska. The next great frontier is cyberspace, and the obvious thing to do is to own cyberspace, buy the future. And so I think it's a great idea. I think it will happen. And I think it's important to the United States because it cements the United States' control over the future world reserve capital network. Senator Lummis's bill will offset $16 trillion of our debt, according to my models right now. So I think it's economically wise, it's technically wise. And again, Bitcoin is manifest destiny for the United States.
As court battles waged on, with entities such as Battleborn Investments and First 100 fighting for ownership, The drama unfolded with the court siding with the DOJ's right to the spoils. Interestingly, moments after this news broke, the Bitcoin roller coaster took a swift nosedive of 3.46%, akin to an investor's heart rate during the market's notorious dramas. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
I think it's going to surge through the roof, and then it's going to surge to 180 and crash to 140, and people will be freaking out about it again. But let me make this one analogy. Volatility is like fire, and some people run away from the fire, but Henry Ford put the fire into a carriage via an engine, created an entire industry, and he gave humanity wings.
Can we talk about? So I've been leading up to for me and for everybody to understand your tweet just from, I think, in the last hour. So what did you do last week with the Treasury operations? You were able to generate a Bitcoin yield of 2.55%, or over almost 10,000 Bitcoin to shareholders using an arbitrage. Can you explain? Will I be able to understand this if you explain this?
We sold $1.5 billion worth of stock, backed by $500 million worth of Bitcoin. We bought back $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. We captured nearly $1 billion gain in the arbitrage. That we can do with equity day by day. When we do it with debt, we issue $3 billion of debt that's backed by $600 million of Bitcoin that comes due in 5 years. We pay 0% interest. We buy $3 billion of Bitcoin. We capture the $2.4 billion in the arbitrage gain up front. But then over the course of the 5 years, we double or we quadruple the investment because we're buying an asset which is appreciating faster than the S&P.
What you told me was that it's 55% premium over conversion, but a zero coupon. Is that the same?
That was a zero coupon 55. And you can do that because Bitcoin is high vol, and the companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheet have even higher volatility. So Mara is a great example. 2 weeks ago, they did $1 billion convert, zero coupon, to buy Bitcoin.
With experts like Michael Saylor crafting visionary narratives around the digital currency and predictions pointing to its resilient growth potential, some argue it's a strategic move rather than a gamble. Despite recent tremors, Bitcoin's pricing, currently stabilizing around $92,500, showcases a dynamic market ready for upward momentum. So, where do you stand in this exhilarating saga? Share your thoughts. And finally, if you would like to know more about cryptocurrencies, or specifically Bitcoin, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.